was a really good episode. I wonder when Loki's coming out. June the 11th. Are you kidding me? So, because that was the last episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier, today I'm going to rank them all the episodes. So let's go. Number 6 is going to be episode 2. Now, the show kind of sold itself on the fact that this was going to be the Falcon and the Bucky show where they have lots of banter. And the show actually genuinely manages to exceed that and be more than that and what the premise suggests. However, this episode leans into it the most, and because it's kind of actually one of the weaker elements of the show, it kind of pulls this episode down. This episode also has the weakest kind of CGI action of the series. These characters are slightly more hand-to-hand, and those fights are definitely more interesting compared to this one. Also, John Walker's setup here does work, but it's not really as interesting as the journey or the payoff. However, the banter is okay, the action is good enough, and Isaiah Bradley is excellent, so overall, this episode is good, if not a bit more Marvel generic. Number 5 is episode 4. Now, the main problem with this episode is the Flag Smashers, where their journey from episodes 1 to 3 is very interesting. However, in this episode, we're kind of treading old ground. We never really see something new from them until more like the finale. This episode does genuinely have some of the best scenes of the series. So, Carly talking to Sam, the John Walker emotional shenanigans at the end. This is also another episode where Zemo is fantastic. It's not a bad episode, it just probably needed another draft in the writer's room. Also, is it just me? It's cool that the Wakandans show up, but it really feels like they don't do anything with them. Like, I definitely feel like they were necessary with the Zemo connection, but they do nothing with the Wakandans in the entire show, to be honest. Number 4 is episode 1, which is an episode that I feel uses a slower pace to really good effect. This isn't the fast-paced, action-centric Marvel that we know, even though when we get that at the start of the episode, it actually ends up being the weakest part of the episode. I think the setup we do for characters here really does work, especially Bucky, where his emotional trauma really is set in stone and we really feel for the character. This episode maybe could have been a little bit of a quicker pace, but that is genuinely a nitpick. Number 3 is episode 5, an episode that is very, very strong. The episode opens with a great fight. You have those moments where you realise that Falcon does want the shield, or at least wants to represent it, and when he sees the blood on the shield, that hits you in the feels. Also, just a continuation of John Walker's arc from the hearing to then the end credit scene. You know, it's interesting, and this is really where the John Walker character becomes a great character. Personal stakes of episode 1 are continued here really, really nicely. It feels refreshing to kind of go back to that, but it also does it with a more Marvel-y pace, which is a great mix. Also, the training montage and just Sam getting the suit, it's a great lead up to the finale, and I felt really excited for that week beforehand. Number 2 is episode 3, where Sharon Carter and Zemo really, really shine. That's one of the things that Disney Plus can do for certain characters, like Sharon Carter, like Zemo, who can't really get much screen time in the films, however in the TV shows they can thrive. Overall, Sharon Carter really does create some brilliant action, and Zemo brings some humour and some fun, and overall, I love Zemo. I bloody love him. Report also works really, really nicely as a setting. It just kind of gives a different pace, a different vibe, just a general different feel to the MCU. It feels a lot more like an 80s film, for example, and it really worked well as a nice change of pace. So after what wasn't an amazing episode 2, this kind of does bring up the levels massively and made me really excited for the second half of the series. But number 1 is episode 6. Now, I haven't actually looked at any reviews, any thoughts, any feelings on this episode, so I'm not sure if I might be the only one. Maybe people hated this episode, but I really, really enjoyed it. The action here is top notch. This is really, really nice action. Nice. Action here is top notch. It's just fantastic. Really, really good action. There's some nice character moments thrown in there. The Sharon Carter reveal also, while predictable, really does work. Also, it's Sam's speech. That speech goes on a long time, but it's really emotionally impactful and it really works. It really ties up the flag smasher element. incredibly well. I really like that part of it. I think Sam's speech really proves what was said in the original Captain America, in which the fact was, you don't have to be a good soldier, but a good man. And that speech and John Walker's arc, it really just ties up the show and the story arcs really, really nicely. So, those were my thoughts. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And guess what? Very, very soon I have a theory about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, so subscribe, and goodbye.
This is Willany, and if you're not already subscribed to the Nerdy Brit, right, you should be, right? If you're not, you're a loser too.